Now, UAE's President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan will arrive in India today for an official visit at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Reportedly, he will arrive in Delhi at 4:20 p.m. and hold talks with PM Modi at 4:45 p.m. He is expected to depart New Delhi around 6 p.m. This will be a 2-hour stay for the Emirati president. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, this visit will be the UAE leader's third official visit to India since assuming office in 2022 and his fifth visit to the country in the past decade. The visit is expected to focus on trade and investment, defense industry cooperation, and energy initiatives. Developments in West Asia are also likely to be discussed during meetings with Indian leadership. The trip takes place amid heightened tensions across West Asia, including strained Iran-US relations, friction between Saudi Arabia and the UAE over Yemen, and an unsettled political situation in Gaza. Bilateral trade between India and UAE has emerged dramatically from roughly $180 million in the 1970s to a historic US $100.6 billion in financial year 2024 to 2025. India is UAE's second largest trading partner. With that, let us now take a look at the bilateral trade between India and UAE. Let me take you through that, viewers. Now, let's look at the India-UAE bilateral trade. Now, India's exports to the UAE is at a figure of $36.64 billion. UAE's exports to India is at a $63.42 billion. The total bilateral trade is $100.6 billion. Now, let's look at this. Now, UAE's major exports to India, pearl and precious stones, stands at $27.9 billion. Petroleum products are at a $24.74 billion. Aircraft parts are at a $2.47 billion, and plastic articles are at a $1.33 billion. Let's now talk about India's major exports to the UAE. Engineering goods are at an $8.28 billion. We have gems and jewelry at $7.75 billion. Coming to petroleum products, which are at a $6.39 billion, and now coming to electronic goods, which are at a $3.69 billion. So this, viewers, is an overview of how much we export to the UAE and how much comes in from there. Now I have, of course, my guest joining me on the broadcast. I do have Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar. He's a senior defense expert. I have Major General Anuj Mathur, who's a senior defense expert. And I have Mitali Nikore, who's an economist, who's also joining me. I want to go across to Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar. Now, Major General Kochar, the question really is that, how significant is the UAE President's visit for India's defense cooperation with the UAE?
Thanks a lot, Vaishali. I think a very good opening narrative has been given, and it clearly reflects the importance of Indo-UAE trade relationship as well as the bilateral relationship. With regard to defense, we first need to understand that what is happening in the Middle East, in the West Asia geopolitics today. There is a churning of geopolitics taking place in West Asia, and especially UAE and Saudi Arabia relations are not that good. Saudi Arabia is coming on to a defense pact with Pakistan. So all these changes are taking place, which are very, very important for us to understand. And defense cooperation between the UAE and India would be understood much better in that context. So I would like to say that we already have a defense mechanism on, a joint defense mechanism on with the UAE, and so far UAE has been very, very active in defense cooperation with India. For example, I'll give you one double five millimeter artillery, howitzer, barrels and spare parts from the Kalyani Strategic Systems Limited, from Bharat Forge, are we are already exporting to the UAE, and and these components are extremely essential for strengthening the armed forces of the UAE. Then we have the ATGM guided missiles, optical sights also to the UAE, and we have the artillery shell casings also being exported. Adani, this factory of small arms ammunition and medium caliber ammunition in Kanpur, is in very active collaboration with the UAE in carrying out these activities. And then the Akash, surface to air missile system. So I'm just giving you a broad outlook on various trade mechanisms which are already on with regard to the defense sector with the UAE. And now, where the dynamics of the Middle East also undergoing a change, I think this short visit is going to cement the relationships to a very, very large extent. We are going to fructify on some of the important deals like the Pinaka rocket systems and other artillery systems. The talks are already on, and I believe that they are in a very advanced stage of talks. So I think that would be a vital area which we can have a look onto it. And we also had recently the Dubai air show, where we showcased all our hardware in terms of aerospace and other activities. So I think it's a very, very far-reaching, very important stopover, and especially when we talk about tariffs also being imposed by the United States, and developing an alternative supply chain for India as far as UAE is concerned. As you mentioned, gems and jewelry was one important aspect which was highlighted by you, because that is one area where the US has imposed very high tariffs. So I think that aspect will also have to be taken into account now, since we are looking for alternative supply chains.
All right. I want to now go across to Major General Anuj Mathur. Now, Major General Mathur, I want to ask you that, how do defense collaborations with the UAE balance India's relations with other West Asian powers like Saudi Arabia and Iran? Sir, I'm unable to hear you. Would request you to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Vaishali?
I can, sir. Please go on.
I just said good morning to you and your viewers. Why good morning? Because I'm in Atlanta. Temperature outside is -3 degrees Celsius. Now the question. The question is very, very, it's an extremely important and pertinent question. The defense relationship in the backdrop of what is happening in geopolitically in the West Asian region today is an extremely important issue. More importantly, it is, has been highlighted by Rajan Kochar, that the kind of pact Pakistan has signed with Saudi Arabia. See, what I would like to bring out is that both Saudi Arabia and UAE are extremely important trading partners, and very, very good relations we've had with both of them all this while. Now this meeting is also going to focus on the situation of Middle East as of now. the kind of situation which is the peace process which is going on in Gaza, also the situation in Yemen, the development of relationship between Saudi Arabia and UAE, the pact, the defense pact between UAE, Saudi Arab and Pakistan, which to my mind has different connotation and different thinkings. But the most important factor will continue to remain is the bilateral trade cooperation between the two, and defense is a very important component of that trade between India and UAE. Mind you, this gentleman is also the second highest ranking defense. This one, I think, is a vice supreme commander of UAE Defense Forces. So this particular visit makes it very important in our relationship with them. Second important issue is we have a sizable Indian population in residing in UAE. I think around 35-40% a population of the UAE is made up of Indians, and they are, in addition to whatever trade relationships we have with the country, they send back 35 billion USD to India. So a people-to-people relationship of India and UAE also is going to feature in this little 2 hours stopover of the UAE president to India. Now, we have to, most importantly, make sure that our energy needs, our energy requirements do not do not get affected by the kind of down trending which is taking place in the area of Yemen between UAE and Saudi Arab. We are importing from both these countries a huge percentage of our energy requirement. So what I feel is that this visit is going to reflect on a few takeaways, and one of them is going to be the defense cooperation between the two countries and people-to-people contact. Vaishali.
All right. I also have Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal, a former diplomat, who's also joined us. Ambassador Goyal, I'll just come to you in a short while. I want to go across now to Mitali Nikore, who's an economist. Mitali, trade and investment are, of course, expected to be the focus of this visit, really. Now, which sectors, according to you, could see immediate outcomes from these talks?
So I think the first and most important thing is that India and the UAE have a lot to gain by working much more closely with each other. One of the most important areas of cooperation is actually happening in one sector where you would not even imagine trade taking place, which is the real estate sector. Because actually what we are seeing more and more is Indians who are going towards the UAE real estate market, making large investments not only in their personal real estate portfolio, but also investing in the commercial real estate portfolio, also investing in office space, because a lot of Indian startups and founders actually want to have a dual base. They want to have a base in India and they want to have a base in the UAE, because these two markets are giving them the kind of global access that they need. India connects them to the eastern side and UAE connects them to the western side of Asia, and that way they can get the entire Asian market. So I would say that this is one of the most important sectors. The second area in which there's a maximum amount of cooperation is in the gems and jewelry sector, because we find that gems and jewelry, the kind of value added services that UAE is able to provide, a lot of Indian jewelers are also now starting to integrate gems and jewelry into their value chain, and that's why they want to have more investments in the gems and jewelry sector. The third area, which is very critical, of course, is the energy sector. Now we've seen that UAE really wants to diversify its energy spaces, right? The UAE wants to come out and say, we are not only about oil markets, but we are actually bringing in expertise on solar energy, on wind energy, on biofuels. So these are areas in which there can be co-investment and exploration together for the two countries to come together and say, how do we diversify our energy sources? Another very big area for the countries to work together is technology and innovation. Now, the UAE wants to come out and say it's a leader in artificial intelligence. It's a leader in innovation of artificial intelligence and tech products. But in order to do that, the UAE actually needs highly skilled engineers. The UAE needs highly skilled innovators in the tech industry. And those are actually going to come from India, because India, we obviously are the global leader when it comes to tech services. So tech services, another area. The fifth area, which is very, very critical, is financial services. So what we see in the UAE and consulting services also is that you need highly skilled consultants, highly skilled business strategists, which are required to, power this entire strategy of the UAE to become a more diversified economy. But in order to actually think of that innovation, think of that strategy, you need people who have experience in business strategy and finance. And those are also coming from India. So I would say that there's a huge scope in terms of the services sector, tech, innovation, digitization, financial services, startups, but also on the manufacturing side, especially in the value added side in gems and jewelry, and in renewable energy between the two countries.
All right. I want to now go across to Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal. Now, Ambassador Goyal, from a former diplomat's perspective, I'd like to understand from you what diplomatic signals is India sending by hosting the UAE president now amid heightened West Asian tensions?
Vaishali, good question. I would just like to reverse the question a little bit. You see, we got to ask, why is the Sheikh, the UAE president, visiting at such a short notice and just for 2 hours? After all, when the state level visits take place, there is a whole protocol around them. And this visit seems to be bereft of all protocol. It's a very functional visit. So we need to ask ourselves, what has happened which is prompting this sudden visit by the UAE head to India in this manner? And there is a whole lot of strategic component to this thing, really speaking. I will go into defense. That's a granular picture. Those things will go on. Defense, trade, political interactions, so-and-so visits, meetings. That will happen. And I think if you want to understand why in that case the visit is taking place, not that what is India getting out of it, but I think why does UAE want India in this conversation at this stage? That's a question we ought to ask. And for me, the answer will lie really in the geopolitical situation of the Middle East, Iran. Iran suddenly, after all that hullabaloo about USA going to punish Iranian regime, saying that unless you roll back or unless the regime change, and there was a whole lot of argument that US is going to attack Iran. And suddenly there is a conversation between the Saudi Arabian foreign minister and the French foreign minister and the Moroccan foreign minister. What did they talk about? And suddenly you find the temperatures are cooling down in Iran. We got to understand that picture. Why is UAE and Saudi Arabia, why are they so keen to ensure that at this moment no attack takes place on Iran? Why? Gaza. President Trump has announced the Gaza plan. Jordan is there. Is that going to bring peace? Is Saudi Arabia there? I mean, they are being considered to be actually money back. Jordan is there, but not Saudi Arabia. Amazing, isn't it? UAE and Saudi Arabia, they're playing the huge role in the whole Middle Eastern situation. And what did they get out of it? Saudi Arabia and the UAE are at loggerheads in Yemen. To do what? They are fighting against Houthis. Houthis supported by Iran. And at the same time, they don't want Iran to suffer. So I think, Vaishali, I would look at the whole visit from the strategic angle. UAE is looking at India in conversation now, basically to deal with the whole new strategic situation in which President Trump, has disrupted the whole game as we had known earlier. And
yes.
deal with the new situation both in Gaza and Iran. I think these conversations are important. Yes, Vaishali, sorry.
No, Ambassador Goyal, please go ahead if you were making a point.
No, I can make the point later on. Please do ask your question again.
No, Ambassador Goel, I just thought you'd stop speaking. But apologies to interrupt you. Ambassador Goel, I was just thinking about this, and very interesting that you said it right there. The visit is only 2 hours long, and I was just going to take that question to Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar. The fact that Ambassador Goels also rightly mentioned that, the visit is just 2 hours long. So I want to know how much impact can such a short official visit really have on bilateral relations? I'd like your viewpoint as well.
Sorry, may I come in for a moment?
Yes,
first?
please go ahead.
Yeah, please, sir.
I say 2 hours visits are the most full of impact because they deal only with business. They don't deal with protocol.
All right, interesting, Ambassador Goel. And now I'd like Major General Rajan Kochar to please comment on this.
Yeah, I think Ambassador Goel has made a very, very important point, and especially please relate to the visit of our External Affairs Minister to UAE last month. It was a comprehensive dialogue with the UAE on the entire bilateral relations which India and the UAE has, including defense cooperation. So let's look at the changing geopolitics as we are discussing, because in 2 hours you cannot conclude any defense deal, you cannot conclude any trade agreements. So it is basically a reaffirmation of your support to each other on whatever has been discussed earlier. Because considering what is happening in Gaza, because that is also extremely important to understand, and most probably UAE would be extremely worried on the trajectory this Gaza peace plan is you taking, especially if you are making it a monetary kind of a thing and an alternative to the United Nations. You see, this role of peace has been entrusted to the United Nations, and we are seeing a change that President Trump now takes over the role of the peacemaker everywhere and sidelines the Security Council and other agencies of the United Nations. So that would be a sore point, I think, for most countries, because you are trying to sideline the importance of the UN now. For whatever it may be, UN still stands as the prime body for ensuring peace all over the world. Second important aspect is, as we are seeing now, UAE is finding itself to be extremely vulnerable, and especially in the Iran conflict, where the United States has already vacated all its personnel from the base in UAE. So it is giving a message to the UAE now that having a security provider like United States doesn't mean anything, because moment if
Major General Kochar, I'd just like to interrupt you, and I'll come back to you and I'll let you complete that thought. But India and UAE share a robust and growing defense relationship, viewers. And let's now take a look at India and UAE's bilateral defense cooperation. And now, viewers, let's look at this. Now, the major defense update, of course, is on the horizon, is the question we're asking. Now, India-UAE defense ties. Let's look at that first. Let's hold that. Now, collaboration between ICOM and Caracal to produce small arms. That's number one. Number two is army to army, Navy to Navy and air to air staff talks held every year under Joint Defence Cooperation Committee. Number three, India's participation in the Dubai Air Show. Number four, Maritime Security MOU between Indian Coast Guard and UAE National Guard against piracy. Number five, viewers, Now, regular joint exercises like desert cyclone to enhance interoperability. All right, viewers, so we've shared those 5 really key and important points, and I'd like to go across to Dr. Rajan Kochar first, or Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar. You were completing your thought. I'd like you to please go ahead with that.
Okay, Vaishali, see, this defense cooperation, as I told you, is extremely important. But this 2 hours visit, what we are talking about, is not going to deal much with that cooperation as it is. It is a kind of a reassurance, and whatever is happening now, I will just I'll continue my argument from where I left off. I was trying to say that United States had established a military base and an air base in UAE, primarily for the protection of the UAE from forces like Iran or other, in case of an attack on UAE. But what we are finding now is that this kind of assurance is not binding any longer as far as Trump is concerned, because moment there is a threat to UAE or to American air base, he starts vacating his troops from there. So instead of strengthening his defenses there to protect UAE against any aerial attack by Iran or any kind of a missile attack from Iran, he is now trying to run away from that place. So that is why it becomes important, as you mentioned, this defense cooperation. Now all these 5 pillars what you have mentioned, they have become all the more relevant now, because India is a trusted partner and India will deliver whatever India has promised. I also made a mention about the 155 ammunition. I made a mention of the small arms ammunition of Adani, where the cooperation is actually going on, and also 2 more important aspects as far as technology is concerned: artificial intelligence, cyber security, and space warfare. So these are the 3 technological areas where India and UAE are talking to each other, and these talks are in a fairly advanced stage. So I would take this from that point that we are saying that by 2030, we want to establish a kind of a trade relation with the UAE of another $100 billion, which is of the non-oil sector. Because right now, this $100 billion trade mostly is in the energy and the oil sector. So I think to that extent, it would be a very, very strong bond. And my last point is, I want to stress upon it also, very important here is diversification of our supply chains, because UAE becomes an important partner for us in the Middle East and especially West Asia, because we have a friend who's very, very powerful in the GCC also, who's very powerful in the OIC also, and we have a face there. We have an ally there who is getting aligned to us in a very, very strong manner in areas other than energy. So I think that would be a very, very vital step in the partnership between the 2 countries.
All right. Now, Dr. Ajay Dua, former Commerce Secretary, has also joined us. But Dr. Dua, I'll just come to you shortly. I want to go across to Major General Anuj Mathur. Major General Mathur, these points that Newsx has collated for our viewers, we were just talking about them on the screen previously. Now, just for our viewers to understand this better, if you could explain to us about these 2 points when we talk about maritime security and MOU between the Indian Coast Guard and UAE National Guard against piracy. And the second point is regular joint exercises like Desert Cyclone to enhance interoperability.
Mute.
Fact continues to remain that you need maritime security, maritime cooperation, because everything relates to the trade and the trade movement that is taking place and the piracy, because this trade, the viewers are absolutely aware as to how Somalians and all the many other things which are affecting these and which are getting into a movement of that kind. So that kind of cooperation is very vitally required between the two nations. If you can recall, our navy has been rescuing, this shipments from these pirates in the Gulf, in the Middle East, in the North Arabian Sea, and we have some kind of expertise in these important issues. So cooperation between these two trusted friends on this issue is going to be an important thing for as far as the Navy thing is concerned. Regular exercises, unless you develop compatibility, unless you develop the kind of thing which you have while operating jointly, it is not going to be that easy to carry out your task. So regular exercising, regular coordinated meetings between the two navies and the two coast guards are become a very vital. Now the second issue, as far as this cooperation from the defense point of view is concerned, see, our concerns in this region are common, and to take care of those common issues, we need to have a kind of inter-services cooperation between the two countries, and that is exactly what that is going to happen. But again, I will go back to what Ambassador Goyal is saying. These 2 hours are not meant for concluding any one of these things. These are going to go on. One point I want to bring out, that the earlier stance of the Middle East was that they were looking at India from the prism of religion. It is Prime Minister Modi's visits post 2015, 7 of them to UAE, the last being when the temple was inaugurated, has turned that on its head. And most important issue which is now coming up is that the the Middle Eastern countries are looking at India as an important trading and defense cooperation partner, and that is the reason, that is the logic which is getting translated on ground in these various kind of agreements which are taking place between the two countries. Surely, joint exercises, joint naval drills, and joint coast guard drills are going to go a long way in making sure that we can protect our trade, our trade in this region. Vaishali.
All right. Now I want to go across to Dr. Ajay Dua, who is a former Commerce Secretary, who is also joining me. Now, Dr. Dua, the question that I want to ask you is that, according to you, how critical is the UAE in India's Make in India or export-oriented strategies?
That's right, Vishali. However, before answering that question, let me endorse what Mr. Goyal, Ambassador Goyal said, that a 2-hour visit is not too many details. It will be a highly focused discussion, and it must have been since he's already around. And it would be either that, or it is to sign a particular document which has been negotiated, and the such document, the only field I can think of is area of defense. There have been discussions. The defense minister of UAE had visited India a few months ago. Last year, the Crown Prince was here, and our foreign minister to UAE recently. So if there is any kind of a very important comes is an agreement on defense, but usually even that wouldn't have remained in so much of wraps, like it would have been discussed openly and endorsements, etc., obtained from the Union Cabinet before signing it. Since that hasn't happened, I am more inclined to think that the visit is more for sharing of appreciation of what is happening in the Middle East, in the Gulf, particularly from 2 points of view. One is going to be the recent uh, clashes in Yemen between the Saudis and the troops of UAE. Their attempt, as we all know, has been to get onto the side of the factions which are controlling the oil-bearing provinces of Yemen. So for the time being, maybe that the war, the conflict between the UAE and Saudi Arabia hasn't escalated, but it could well be that he's come to seek support on which side India would be. And we are probably, we will have to be very discreet about it because we are trying to get close to both. Almost everybody in the GCC and certainly Saudi Arabia, given its heft, both in terms of oil as well as otherwise, and the fact that our Prime Minister and the Crown Prince there do get along extremely well, is also going to be kept in mind. Gaza, what's happening in Gaza is a matter of concern, certainly. Mr. Trump is has formed a board of peace, but look at it, it's a private effort. It's an effort of what is going to happen under the leadership of President Trump, even when he's not going to be there, because you pay $1 billion per country, so that, and if you want to be a member for too longer than into the third year or beyond, that's when Mr. Trump's effort ends. So what we are planning to do there would depend upon how we perceive things beyond President Trump, because the board of management is essentially saying that whether President Trump is there, the United States president or not, he would be the chairman, and the kind of people who are coming in are the ones who can afford to be there, and that means pay $1 billion. Now, sorry for digressing. Let me get back to the question of the India and the UAE collaborating in Made in India manufacturing program. I think the effort of the UAE, the biggest effort of UAE, which will contribute to it, is going to be assurance to buy the Indian products which are made here. We've already taken our trade to $100 billion, hiked it up in last 2.5 years that our trade agreement has been in force with them, and we are striving to do much more because the technology which we need for manufacturing I don't think the UAE per se is into it in any big manner. UAE has been receiving aid, manufacturing aid, consultancies, buying technologies, etc., from around the world because it has the ability to afford the best advisors, import the best technology, etc. So the assurance of a market will give a tremendous boost to the efforts in India to produce more goods here, and we can in fact be of use to UAE in certain aspects of the technology related work being done in the UAE, because those will be common, particularly in the state-of-the-art technologies which we talk about now, particularly based in AI, semiconductors, as well as blockchain, etc., which the UAE is also developing. And as we all know, and that's a subject actually being discussed tomorrow, day after it,
Dr.
the
Noor,
report of the
I will
for
just have
Davos
to interrupt you, and apologies for that, but we have some breaking news coming in at this point. Now, according to sources, UAE president is set to land in New Delhi shortly and PM Modi will likely receive the foreign dignitary at the airport. This is the big breaking news, viewers, that we're sharing with you at this point. I have Aditya Vadhavan joining me. Aditya, what more can you tell us?
Well, absolutely, Vishali. This, the UAE president will be shortly landing at the Palam airport, and definitely, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be there to receive him. Earlier, when last, when Russian President Vladimir Putin had landed in Delhi, then also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had gone on to the airport, to receive him. And similarly now, since the diplomatic relations between India and UAE have been excellent in the past, and there's a large people-to-people connect between India and UAE. It is very, this is the reason, why Prime Minister Narendra Modi has personally gone to receive the UAE president, and definitely post that there will be a meeting between the two leaders at the local Kalyan Marg. Definitely, there will be a lot of bilateral talks that will happen between the two leaders, and definitely several diplomatic engagements are lined up for the day. Vishali.
All right, Aditya, thanks for joining me. Now, I want to go across to Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal. Now, Ambassador Goyal, another very important reason why this visit has acquired all the significance is that, it will start 2 days after the UAE welcomed President Trump's announcement on the formation of the Board of Peace, for which India has also received an invite. What would you like to say on that?
I think I was on your sister channel about invitation to Prime Minister Modi for the Gaza board, the peace board, President Trump's pet peeve or pet hobby, pet horse, whatever you want to call it. I really don't know what purpose this project is going to serve. Frankly speaking, my own personal belief is that the peace in Palestine is a chimera, which is not going to be achieved through this peace board, etc., unless they happen to recognize that Palestinians have a right to their own state, which this proposal does not. I think it's all a chimera, really. It's a mirage. And my personal belief is that if Prime Minister Modi were to accept that invitation to serve on the board, of which Judith Kushner is the chairman, the son-in-law of President Trump, will he be serving, Prime Minister Modi will be on the board in capacity as the Prime Minister of India or in his personal capacity? That's a question. For a Prime Minister to be a member of a board chaired by a person like this is a bit strange. Anyway, second thing, what role will he play in the whole project where it goes basically against our own position as well as the American position. That apart. UAE has welcomed it. There is no doubt about it. But I don't think UAE will be talking to India or trying to persuade India one way or the other. That decision will remain the Indian decision. But they will discuss Gaza. They will discuss the impact of this peace board on the situation in Gaza. And they will try and see where the future goes ahead. If there is a difference of opinion between India and the UAE, so be it. I think there would be a difference of opinion because the UAE is looking really now the whole thing to be settled. But very clearly, this is a different matter. I just want to add one more thing here, Vaishali, and that is very simply this. We have invested a lot in this idea of IMEC. India Middle East connectivity project. And please do remember that this project is also has a bearing on our own North-South economic corridor, European connectivity. So there is a game afoot where Iran has a role to play. Chabahar is not too far from the UAE port. Bandar Abbas is right there. So let us see what happens. It is not simply an ordinary discussion. It's something very, very different, and we will need to wait for the end of the visit to know what it was all about, provided they tell us what it was all about. Vaishali.
All right, I'll come back to all my guests. I'd request all my guests to stay on with me. Now, The trip of the Emirati king comes amid heightened tensions across West Asia, including strained Iran-US relations, friction between Saudi Arabia and the UAE over Yemen, and the situation in Gaza. With that, let's now take a look at the developments taking place in West Asia amid this trip. All right, viewers, so let me get you that. Now, let's talk about the immediate global matters. Let's talk about development 1. Now, Trump's invite to India and the UAE to join the Gaza Peace Board, which is what we were discussing previously. Let's talk about development 2. Protests in Iran and threat of spillover into the Middle East. Development 3, viewers. Now, Pakistan claiming a defense deal with Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Development 4, viewers. Saudi airstrike in southern Yemen on a UAE shipment. Let's now talk about development 5. Renewed fighting in Syria between government forces and SDF. So these, of course, are the immediate global matters, viewers, that we've shared with you. And I now want to go across to Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar. We've shared all of these important developments with our viewers. What would you like to say on those?
Vaishali, very wide canvas, because all these things are happening in all different areas, and they may not be related to each other. As a matter of fact, when we talk about UAE as a fulcrum here in our discussion, what is happening in Iran and the spillover of those tensions in Iran on to the other Gulf countries may not happen, because the reasons why these problems are taking place in Iran are absolutely different, because of sanctions, because of economic sanctions, the value of the local currency real going down by almost 58% in the last 6 months, the food prices touching rock bottom, and people are not having enough to drink water also. So these are quite circumstances which are related to the sanctions on Iran, as well as to the role of the CIA and Mossad within Iran. And that actually gives us a feeling or a situation where Middle East or West Asia is not stable today. And that is a cause for a concern for India, because Chabahar was one important link, as you mentioned, for the Indians to get into the Central Asian republics as well as Afghanistan. And we have invested quite a lot of our resources and money in Chabahar, which has gone into limbo as of now. But I am hopeful that if things stabilize, maybe a resuscitation of Chabahar will take place. And my last point is, you mentioned what is happening in Gaza as far as this peace plan is concerned. You see, my view here is that it's a very the analogy I may not be very, very apt, but it's like when you take a membership of a golf club, you can play the game, yes, but you have to give money for it. So I think this is another way of Donald Trump trying to collect donation